It's June 15th, 1954, and America is in a very delicate time in history. Communism had made its way across large amounts of Asia, and we were in the middle of the Cold War. Now, people were really scared that communism was going to make its way across the world to America, and this was a part of the Red Scare, which I'm sure you have heard of. Now, America wanted to set itself apart from the communists in every way possible, not only geographically but also culturally. And on June 15th, 1954, this idea prevailed, and the words "under God" were added to the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, the pledge was written in 1892, and for 62 years, the words "under God" were not in the Pledge of Allegiance, which a lot of people do not know. And ever since it has been added, there has been a lot of debate on whether or not it should be taken out. And my goal today is to persuade you to believe that it should be taken out. First, I'll talk about the meaning of separation of church and state and where it comes from. Second, I will talk about the societal factors and impacts of the Pledge of Allegiance. And third, I'll talk about counter arguments for keeping "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance with my own refutations. So, let's get started. First, I'll talk about the Constitution. And no matter what your beliefs are, I hope that you can agree that separation of church and state is good for society. And it comes from the Constitution. Amendment 1 of the Bill of Rights of the Constitution has the Establishment Clause and the Free Exercise Clause. The Establishment Clause says that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. And in 2010, Congress released a press release talking about the Establishment Clause and said, and I quote, "unleashing personal religious choice." And that's its purpose. The Free Exercise Clause is a little different. It says that Congress shall make no law that prohibits the free exercise of religion, so that you can exercise your religion however you want to without the government getting in the way. Now, the main purpose of these two clauses is to make sure the government doesn't get involved with religion at all, and that it doesn't favor one religion over another. Now, it is my personal belief that the having "under God" in the pledge is a violation of the Establishment Clause. And Indiana State University of Law released an excerpt that talks about why it is constitutional to leave "under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance. It actually went to the Supreme Court, and they ruled that it may stay in because the word God does not establish a religion, but in fact it is a product of history, and it has historical value since there are mentions of the word God in the Declaration of Independence and things like that. My argument is that you cannot say that religion and history are just intertwined completely. You have to separate them. Religion is going to be a part of history, but just because it's in history doesn't mean that it can stay in. You have to know that they are separate things. I believe that that is just a cheap way of hiding behind it actually does establish a religion. Now that we know a little bit more about the Constitution and our constitutional rights, now I'll talk about the societal impacts. And all too often I hear that since the United States is Christian majority, that it is that's democracy, that it should stay in, since most people believe. And this is an invalid argument to me completely, because democracy for me means that every individual is treated as equal. Just because you're a Christian and part of a majority does not mean that you should have special interests. That is not a democracy, and that is not freedom. So I don't understand that argument at all. Now let's take a step back and ask ourselves what the pledge is even meant for. I believe it is meant to inspire patriotism, and I think it does a pretty good job of doing that. You know, we all stand there and put our hand on our hearts and look at the flag. I just think it could go without talking about God or religion. Now, according to Sarah Stitzline in Education and Culture regarding the pledge, one of their primary aims was to promote patriotism and an allegiance and a pride in our nation state. That's what they say it's supposed to do, and I believe it does that. Now, since it does that so effectively, when you flip it around, it can have negative consequences. There was, in fact, a kid at Oakville High School in California this year who refused to say the pledge because he did not believe in a God, and legally you are not forced to say the pledge. His teacher, of course, did not respond well and told him that you have to say it or else I'm going to punish you and you're being disrespectful. The kid gave in, and he said something that he didn't believe in and something that he didn't want to do, and I do not believe that's what our founding fathers would think a free country would do. Now, according to the executive director of the American Humanist Association, the pledge marginalizes atheists, agnostics, non-believers, and humanists just because it makes you look less patriotic because you don't believe in God. It ties God and patriotism together. So I believe that is wrong. Now, for my last segment, I'll talk about a couple more arguments I hear for keeping under God in the pledge, and I'll talk about my own refutations. People say, how can someone get so offended by something that they don't believe in? Well, just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean you can't be offended. What if the pledge said, under Allah? You don't have to believe in Allah to be offended by it. But people will say, well, Allah is a specific God of the Islam faith, so that establishes a specific religion. God is a generic word. It could be any God. Well, I think that's ridiculous, because the only reason the majority of people are okay with it is because the majority of people are Christians. And to say that it's talking about any God other than the Christian God is ridiculous to me. Most religions have multiple gods, so saying it is just one God is another thing that points to saying, well, this is Christian, and that is favoring one religion over another. And people think that the ones who are trying to take under God out of the Pledge of Allegiance are trying to force their beliefs on others, and this could not be further from the truth. The people who do not believe are having beliefs of God forced on them. Saying under God forces beliefs on millions of people who do not believe in a God. So, if it was forcing beliefs on anybody, they would just want to say, under no God. But instead, why mention a God at all? People also say that since this country was founded by people who had Christian faith, that it should stay in the Pledge of Allegiance. But what people seem to forget is that religious freedom is one of the ideas that created this country. It is one of the reasons America is so diverse, and people came here so that they could have religious freedom. Now, in 1814, a letter from Thomas Jefferson to Thomas Cooper, he says that Christianity neither is nor ever was part of the common law. And he was our third president. Now, people believe that non-believers just want to destroy religion and bring down those who are a part of it. But I'm here to tell you that that's not true. They just want it to be treated as equal. Now, in conclusion, America is a great country with great values and freedom of religion, just not complete freedom. My intention was to persuade you, but if I have not persuaded you, I hope that I have informed you. I believe that the path to change starts with education and information. And I will conclude this speech with another quote from Thomas Jefferson in 1799, where he says, I am for freedom of religion and against all maneuvers to bring about a legal ascendancy of one sect over another. Thank you.